first met her, I was just immediately in love.
Power belongs to old New York, my dear. Not the new. Never the new.
What a fine young man you're becoming. Believe it.
From a dark depiction of contemporary high school life to the pitfalls of sudden success in 19th century New York. Welcome to this month's show on all the latest releases on the small screen. For that, Yena Lee joins me to talk about her TV picks. Hi, Yena. Now, we're starting with the much-awaited return of Euphoria, starring Primetime Emmy Award-winning actress Zendaya.
Well, Euphoria is about high school students dealing with relationships, friendships, and substance abuse, Olivia. It's grittier than the uplifting British drama Sex Education, and it's far less glamorous than the Spanish production Elite. Euphoria crudely depicts drug use, sex, and violence, so it's not for the faint-hearted. I personally think the series is fantastic. The cinematography, the dialogues and their delivery, the complexity of the characters, as well as the meticulously chosen soundtrack.
I've got to say, I was super impressed by Series 1, or Season 1. You must have had high expectations. What do you make of Season 2?
Well, the first episode was a triumphant return for the show. We finally get the backstory about local drug dealer Fezco and his brother Ash, as well as a massive New Year's party attended by most of the kids. Main character Rue, played by Zendaya, has also relapsed and is using drugs once again. And for those watching very closely, they might have noticed that there's been a change in lighting in Season 2.
Yeah, and apparently that is a deliberate choice, as creator and director Sam Levinson explains.
Why can't I shake the feeling that there's something you're not telling me?
You're like a relationship kind of girl, right?
You guys can all judge me if you want, but I do not care. I have never, ever been happier.
I wanted to create something that still had the heart and soul of Euphoria, but it looks different and it feels different. If Season 1 was sort of a house party at 2 a.m., Season 2 should feel like 5 a.m., way past the point in which everyone should have gone home. We had reached out to Kodak to see if they could remake Ektachrome for us, because we both love that film stock. And they ended up, converting their factory in order to remake Ektachrome for 35. It just looks absolutely beautiful.
I love you. I've always been with you. From before you were born.
I raised you. You were so different. So do I.
Until after you're gone.
I'm the killer.
Stunning visuals there, indeed. But there is always the danger with a series like Euphoria that it becomes more style over substance. What do you think? Do the aesthetics end up glamorizing or glossing over some of those violent themes?
Well, Euphoria is undeniably aesthetically pleasing, almost like life through Instagram filters. But I'd argue that the show really does delve into sensitive topics in a thought-provoking way. This is down to Zendaya and Hunter Schafer's performances. For me, Zendaya's portrayal doesn't actually glamorize a drug use, because when Rue is using, I think viewers feel exasperated. I think they want her to get better, and she doesn't glamorize drug use. We might have explicit scenes and artful takes on what being high might feel like, but we also see how awful she looks and what these bad choices mean for her. No one wants to end up like Rue when you're watching the show. Writer Sam Levinson was actually in and out of rehab himself when he was a teen, and I think that this adds to the realism of Euphoria. Hunter Schafer, meanwhile, plays Rue's love interest, Jules, in the series, and aside from breaking the barriers of trans representation, I think Schafer does a brilliant job in depicting what it's like to be the loved one or a friend of somebody who's suffering from addiction.
Certainly some hard-hitting issues there. Now, we're staying in the US, but completely changing gears now. This comes from the creator of Downton Abbey, a period drama set in New York in the 19th century. It's called The Gilded Age. Tell us more.
Well, the show centers around penniless and orphaned Marion, who has moved to the Big Apple to live with her rich aunts. They're a part of old money who refuse to mix with the nouveau riche. The Gilded Age refers to a period of rapid economic expansion in the US. And to illustrate that, we have a secondary family in the series. The husband is a railway tycoon. The wife is desperate to fit in with the other ladies in town. And they've just built the biggest mansion off of Fifth Avenue.
I hope you're not against Miss Scott. She'll disrupt things.
Maybe we need a bit of disruption.
Let the tournament begin.
Why don't we just go outside and roll in the gutter? It will save time.
Do you know Newport well, Miss Russell?
The mistress is not a player in the great game.
That woman's unsuitable as an acquaintance. I'll make them pay one day.
How can anyone be so rich?
Now, the challenge for Julian Fellowes was to come up with a show that has his signature style, but without making it look like an American copy of Downton Abbey. And for me, he's failed at that because some of the casting and the characters are so similar to the British show that it feels completely contrived. I'm referring to the household staff. There's a chubby cook, a brazen maid, and a stern butler.
Yeah, I think we've seen some of those cliches before. What about then the money, old and new, the upstairs characters?
Well, I was far more impressed. They're more original and they've been given a bit more depth. Marion is actually played by Louisa Jacobson in what is her TV debut. She gives a convincing performance as a young woman discovering her place in New York and in society. Her two aunts are played by Christine Baranski and Cynthia Nixon. Baranski is fantastic, even though at times she does remind me of Diane Lockhart from The Good Fight. Cynthia Nixon was completely new in this role, and all in all, the three have very good chemistry. For me, though, the scene stealer is Carrie Coon, who plays the wife of the railway tycoon. She wears her heart on her sleeve, making it impossible to hate her. Also worth mentioning is how the show is attempting to depict racism and prejudice of that era. Danae Benton plays the aspiring writer Peggy Scott, who becomes friends with Marion. We'll have to see how this plotline develops.
Okay, one to keep an eye on then. You're staying with historical drama, Yena, but completely changing eras and locations. This is 1987, South Korea, a time when the country was on the cusp of becoming a democracy. That's the backdrop for this new series, a controversial new K-drama.
Yes, Snowdrop has several layers. A love story between two supposed students, the National Intelligence Agency's hunt for North Korean spies, and a political power struggle. It stars Chung Hae-in, who was impeccable in military drama DP. Opposite him, we have K-pop star Jisoo from Blackpink. On paper, all of this sounds like you have all the ingredients for a exciting, entertaining TV show. But in just 1 week, 350,000 people signed a petition on the government's website demanding that the drama be cancelled.
Intriguing. Why so controversial?
Well, critics accuse Snowdrop of historical revisionism because you see the male student of that love story is in fact a North Korean spy. And in real life, during South Korea's struggle for democracy, police actually routinely rounded up activists and opponents for alleged communist sympathies. Accusations that led to countless accounts of torture, arrests, arbitrary killings. So even if we're talking about a fictional show, many people were very surprised as to why writers chose this angle.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this political and polemical series. Here's a clip.
애초에 널 만나지 않았더라면
만약 그냥 평범한 사람이었다면.
대선 이제 3주도 안 남았어. 3주도. 우린 돈만 대고 북에서 다 공작하기로 했는데 뭐가 어려워?
Now, the show is available on Disney Plus in its Asia-Pacific market, and a group of Korean studies professors actually wrote a letter to Disney criticizing the show. They mentioned the fact that the main character was originally named Young Cho. Indeed, that's the name of a democracy activist whose husband really was tortured on suspicion of being a North Korean sympathizer. The academics wrote, I quote, "The drama used the name of a victim of anti-communist propaganda in a narrative that actually echoes the propaganda."
Wow, so the premise is problematic then. What about the rest of the show? Are there any redeeming qualities?
Well, Snowdrop just doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. The characters aren't fleshed out at all. Most of the female students seem like airheads, and after several hours of viewing, we know very little about them except that they all want to date. The political side plot fails to intrigue me, and the North Korean spy element just falls a bit flat. All quite disappointing, as writer Yoo Hyun-mi was the woman behind the dark parenting Netflix hit Sky castle. I do want to say shout out to Jisoo, though, who might not be able to enunciate very well, but she did a very decent job with a bland role. What I did enjoy about Snowdrop were the clothes, the props, and the girls' dorm drama. It partially takes place on a fictional campus that's based on the real life at Ewha Women's University, which brings me to another missed opportunity, actually. The university recently published a book on the role of women in student activism, but you barely see it in Snowdrop.
Oh, what a shame. It sounds like it was a bit lacking for you then, Yena. Well, you've chosen to end with another historical drama that's being praised for its sensitive depiction of a crucial period in American history this time.
Yes, it's a historical drama, Olivia, but one that feels all too relevant today. ABC's Women of the Movement revisits the birth, the murder, and the afterlife of Emmett Till, seen through the eyes of his mother, Mamie Till Mobley. The 15-year-old boy's brutal murder in 1955 sent shockwaves through the US. His mother became a prominent civil rights activist afterwards, and she famously proclaimed, "Let the people see what they did to my boy," and ordered an open casket for her son. Adrienne Warren from the Tina Turner musical plays the lead role, and she depicts grief, love, and anger with sincerity on screen. Till Mobley's story is the first of several that we'll be seeing, as ABC has made it a part of an anthology on women of the civil rights movement, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the rest.
Definitely a tragic and pivotal moment in that movement there. We'll leave you with a clip of that series in just a moment. But Yena, thanks for being with us this week with that roundup. Do remember to check out our website. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
One round-trip ticket to Winona, Mississippi.
Mississippi is not like Chicago. White folks are gonna treat you different. It's just the way that it is.